Get ready to have your minds blown because today we're going deep into the concept of time.
Through music, no less.
Through music, we're talking articles, interviews, and of course the music itself, Stroessner's new track, Decoding the Enigma.
And it's not just about how it sounds, it's about how Stroessner uses sound to really grapple with some pretty profound questions about time.
Exactly, and that's what's got me so intrigued. So how does he actually make time something you can hear? What should I be listening for when I put this track on?
Well, imagine the sound of a ticking clock.
Amplified, yeah, and woven into these really complex layers of synths.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
So Stroessner uses those kind of like pulsating rhythms to create this feeling of time constantly moving forward. And then he adds these deep resonant bass lines.
I love a good bass line.
Right. It's almost like the heartbeat of the universe. It grounds the track, gives it this immense sense of gravity.
So it's like he's created this world where you can feel the weight of time, not just hear it. You got it. But there's more. He also uses these echoing delays and reverb to create moments where the music seems to like stretch out, almost like time is standing still.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's this juxtaposition of forward momentum and suspended moments that makes you really feel the complexity of time.
I'm already getting chills just thinking about it. Okay, so we've got the layered synths, the deep bass, the echoing delays. They're all working together to paint this picture of time. But there's this other element we need to talk about. His decision to create this whole thing without using AI. That seems like a pretty deliberate choice.
Oh, absolutely. It's a statement. You know, AI can write entire symphonies in seconds now. But by choosing to create Decoding the Enigma purely through human effort, Stroessner is highlighting something essential about how we connect with art.
So it's not about rejecting technology. It's more about emphasizing the human element, the human touch.
Exactly. It's reminding us that even in a world completely saturated with technology, there's still something powerful, something irreplaceable about human intuition, about the creativity that goes into making a piece of music like this.
It makes you appreciate the artistry in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit here. The promo material mentions that Stroessner tackles some pretty big philosophical questions in this track. One that jumped out at me was this concept of time being sempiternal.
Sempiternal.
What does that even mean?
So sempiternal basically means existing without a beginning or an end. Forever.
Okay, that's a big concept.
Right. It's hard to even wrap your head around.
Yep.
But when you listen to Decoding the Enigma, there are these moments where the music seems to fade into this infinite space. Like it's always been there, and it always will be.
Interesting.
Especially the way he uses these sustained synth chords that just sort of hang in the air. They almost blend into like the background noise of the universe. And it creates this feeling of timelessness, something that exists outside of our normal perception.
I see. So it's not just about the notes themselves. It's about the space, the silence he uses to create that feeling of eternity.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that it ties into the listener's own experience.
Yeah.
Even though the concept of sempiternal is abstract, the music lets you feel it.
It makes you question your own sense of time, how you experience it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, has listening to this music, even just for a few minutes, shifted how you perceive time?
I have to admit, it has. Even just talking about it, I feel a little more aware of time flowing around me.
See.
And speaking of things changing, there's another aspect I wanted to ask you about. I keep hearing people say that decoding the Enigma actually sounds different every time you hear it.
Oh, yes.
Is that some kind of sonic trickery, or what's going on there?
It's not a trick, but it is very intentional. What Stroessner has done is created this soundscape that's so rich, so layered, that you simply can't absorb it all on one listen.
Oh, okay.
It's like he's composed this multidimensional puzzle that reveals new details every time you listen.
So it's not that the music is actually changing, it's that our experience of it changes depending on what we focus on.
Precisely. And it reminds me of how our own perception of time shifts all the time, right?
Right.
Some days it feels like it's flying by, other days it drags on forever. Our mood, what's going on around us, even our age, all these things influence how we experience time.
That's such a cool parallel. It's like he's using sound to mirror the subjective nature of time. It's making me want to dive in and dissect every layer. But before I do, I want to know more about the artist himself. What kind of person creates music like this?
From everything I've read, Stroessner is a bit of an enigma himself. He's known for pushing boundaries, challenging what it even means to be an electronic musician these days. And his decision to avoid AI in Decoding the Enigma is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, it really speaks to his vision, his dedication to exploring these deeper meanings.
And it's this commitment to going beyond the surface level, to diving into the philosophical and emotional depths of time that makes decoding the enigma so captivating. It's not just music, it's an experience, a journey.
I am officially hooked. This deep dive has definitely sparked a whole new level of curiosity about decoding the enigma, and I'm ready to go deeper into how he actually creates this, how he translates these abstract ideas about time into something you can actually hear and feel. Ready to break it down.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Remember those pulsating synths we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
They're not just there for atmosphere, they're strategically arranged to represent the linear nature of time. He uses these driving rhythms and layered melodies to create a sense of forward motion, like time marching on.
So the music is propelling you forward, like time pushes us through life.
Exactly. But what about those other aspects of time? Like the cyclical nature, the creation and destruction, the moments of stillness.
Right, how do those come into play?
That's where his masterful use of contrast comes in. He'll juxtapose those driving rhythms with these moments of quiet reflection, where the music slows down, almost like time is taking a breath. And then to represent that cyclical nature of time, he uses these recurring melodies and motifs that pop up throughout the track. It's like a sonic echo of the past, reminding you that, everything comes back around in some way.
Whoa. So it's like this track is as much a philosophical statement as it is a piece of music.
That's what makes it so brilliant. He's using music to explore this paradoxical nature of time, how it can be both constant and always changing, linear and cyclical, a force of creation and destruction.
Mind-blowing. And we haven't even touched on the specific techniques he uses to achieve all this. I'm so ready to keep going.
Let's do it. One thing I noticed was how he uses these resonant synth layers to create this sense of vastness, like you're floating in space.
Ooh.
Which to me really ties into that idea of eternity we were discussing earlier, like this feeling of something bigger than ourselves, outside the constraints of time.
It's like he's giving us a glimpse into the infinite.
And considering it's just sound waves hitting our eardrums, it's pretty incredible.
That is the power of music. Now, when you mention creation and destruction, I immediately thought of those moments where the music builds to these intense crescendos.
Oh, yeah?
Like a supernova exploding.
Yes.
It's like time wiping things away, creating change, even if it feels chaotic. But then, right after those intense moments, the music settles back down into this peaceful, almost meditative state, like things are being reborn. It's the cycle of life and death, but played out through sound.
You got it.
Okay, one last thing before we wrap up this part of our deep dive. We keep coming back to his decision to reject AI. It's such a bold statement, especially now when technology is so prevalent in music. Do you think he's trying to say something bigger here, something about the role of technology in art itself?
I think it goes beyond just a personal choice. It speaks to this larger conversation we're having about technology and art. Are we losing something essential when we rely too heavily on machines? Where do we draw the line between innovation and preserving human expression?
Big questions.
Big questions.
Yeah.
And there aren't any easy answers. But the fascinating thing is that Stroessner isn't shying away from that conversation. He's provoking us to think critically about our relationship with technology, about how it impacts not only how we create art, but how we experience the world around us.
He's not giving us answers, but he's definitely asking the right questions. That seems to be the theme of this whole deep dive.
And that's the beauty of art, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't always give us answers, but it encourages us to ask the questions, to explore, to be curious. And sometimes the journey itself is more valuable than any destination.
I love that. We've covered a lot of ground here, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface. We've talked about the sounds, the philosophy, the artistic choices. I am ready to put on my headphones and actually experience decoding the Enigma now.
Yes.
But before I do, is there anything else you want to share that might enhance the listener's experience? Any final thoughts for this part of our deep dive?
What strikes me most about this whole piece is that he's managed to make something so complex, so thought-provoking, also incredibly accessible. You don't need a degree in philosophy or music theory to appreciate it. It's just there, waiting to be experienced. So go in with an open mind, let the sounds wash over you, and see where your own personal decoding of the Enigma takes you.
Well said. I'm definitely ready for that journey. Listeners, if you're feeling even a fraction of the intrigue I'm feeling right now, I urge you to go experience Decoding the Enigma for yourself. It's more than just music, it's an exploration, a meditation, a challenge to our understanding of time. And trust me, you won't regret it. We'll be back soon to break down even more layers of this sonic masterpiece. Until then, keep those ears open and those minds curious.
Okay, are you ready to get into some of the actual nuts and bolts of how he makes this all work?
Oh, absolutely. Hit me with it. What are some of the techniques he uses to translate these ideas about time into something you can actually hear?
Well, one that really jumped out at me was his use of polyrhythms.
Polyrhythms. Okay, break that down for me.
So remember how we talked about time being both linear and cyclical?
Yeah.
Well, he uses these interlocking rhythms, right? They play against each other. And it creates this really cool sense of like simultaneous forward motion, but also this eternal recurrence.
Whoa, so it's like two different experiences of time happening at the same time?
Exactly. And it's not just like a fancy rhythmic trick. It really mirrors how we actually experience time in our lives, right?
Yeah.
We're always moving forward, but there are these repeating patterns, cycles that we go through.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And that's where his decision to avoid AI, really becomes even more interesting. By crafting every single detail himself, he's able to inject this level of intentionality into the music that an algorithm just, I don't know, wouldn't have that same feeling.
Because like he's saying, this is my human interpretation of time, Like, this is what it feels like to me.
Exactly. And that human element is what makes it so relatable. Even though, yeah, the concept of time is this vast, complex thing, we can connect with it on an emotional level through Stroessner's music.
For sure. And, we touched on this earlier, but I want to dig a little deeper. This whole thing about how the track seems to change every time you listen to it. How does that tie into the specific sounds and techniques he's using?
It's all about the way he uses layers and texture. He builds up this really dense sonic tapestry with all these subtle details hiding within it. So on one listen, you might be focused on the driving beat, but then you listen again, and suddenly you're noticing these intricate melodies weaving in and out.
It's like a Sonic Where's Waldo, right? With something new to discover every time.
Right. And it really reinforces the idea that our perception of time is always shifting, right? Our mood, what we're focused on, our memories, they all play a role.
So it's like he's created this sonic mirror reflecting our own personal relationship with time.
And speaking of mirrors, there's another technique he uses that I think is really effective. He'll introduce a melody or a rhythmic pattern, but then he'll distort it, stretch it, maybe even play it in reverse.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like he's taking these familiar elements of time and then, I don't know, kind of warping them, showing us how our perception can be manipulated and distorted.
Yeah, like looking in a funhouse mirror. You recognize yourself, but it's also a bit disorienting.
Exactly. And that feeling of disorientation is deliberate. He's challenging our assumptions about time, making us question whether it's really as linear and predictable as we tend to think it is.
I'm realizing that this deep dive isn't just about understanding a piece of music. It's about understanding our own place in, like, the grand scheme of time,
That's a really insightful way to put it. And I think that's what makes Decoding the Enigma so powerful. It's not just entertainment, it's a catalyst for self-reflection.
Absolutely. Okay, before we get too existential here, I want to bring it back to the music for a minute. We talked about the synths, the bass, the polyrhythms, the delays. Is there anything else in his toolbox that we haven't touched on yet?
There's one element that I think is absolutely crucial to the emotional impact of the whole piece. It's this amazing contrast. It's like he's taking us from this vastness of space down to the microscopic level, showing us how time operates at these totally different scales.
It's like zooming in and out of the fabric of time, revealing its hidden dimensions.
And what really gets me is that it's just sound waves. It's incredible how he can evoke this whole range of emotions and ideas just with sound. He's not telling us what to think about time. He's inviting us to experience it in all its complexity and wonder.
This has been such a trip so far. I'm feeling inspired, intrigued, and a little bit, mind blown.
Me too. And we've only scratched the surface. But I think it's time for us to take a step back and let the music speak for itself. Why don't you go listen to the track again with all these new insights in mind?
Ooh, I like that. Listeners, we'll be right back to share our final thoughts and reflections. In the meantime, go put on your headphones, get lost in the world of decoding the Enigma. We'll catch you on the other side.
primal shapeless entity, beyond energy and matter, pure sacred senses, the master of cosmic laws, extending its realm throughout the vastness of space, all symbols, silently traveling from eternity to eternity to eternity to eternity. Architect of all creation, Father of eons, placing the foundations of the universe, primal shapeless entity, beyond energy and matter, ruler of sacred senses, the master of cosmic laws, extending its realm throughout the vastness of space, always in motion, silently traveling from eternity to eternity to eternity to eternity. Architect of all creation, silently traveling from eternity to eternity.
All right, we're back. And wow, that second listen, like a whole new experience.
I know, right? It's amazing what a little insight into the creative process can do.
For me, it's those polyrhythms that just keep echoing in my head, the way they create that sense of forward motion and eternal recurrence.
It really is like a musical representation of the paradox of time.
It's not just empty space, it's like charged, makes you lean in.
Absolutely. Those pauses give you a moment to absorb everything you've just heard, like he's saying, hey, pay attention, something big's coming.
And then, bam, he hits you with those incredibly intricate passages, those shimmering textures. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. It's like he's revealing this hidden beauty within all that complexity of time.
Yeah, the way he can shift from these grand cosmic soundscapes to these delicate, almost fragile melodies, it's just, wow.
You know, something that really hit me this time was the emotional impact. It's not just like intellectually stimulating, it's genuinely moving.
I felt that too. Those moments where the music swells, those crescendos, it's like the universe is breathing right in your ear.
Powerful, right?
Right.
Like he's captured the raw power of time, the creative force, but also the destructive one.
And then just when you think it's too much, he brings you back down with those bass lines, the grounding rhythms reminding you that there's order amidst all the chaos.
He's a master at guiding you through that emotional roller coaster, but always with a sense of purpose.
We've talked a lot about the specifics, but I think it's important to remember the bigger picture. Stroessner's not just making music, he's challenging how we think about time itself.
He's asking us to see it as this multidimensional force that shapes everything about our lives.
And the coolest part is, he does it in a way that everyone can connect with. You don't need to be a musician or a philosopher to appreciate it.
Exactly. Just go in with an open mind, let the sound wash over you. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be willing to ask the questions.
This deep dive has been incredible. It's made me appreciate music in a whole new way.
Music has this power to transport you, to make you think, to feel things you didn't even know you could feel.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to our listeners, if you haven't already, go listen to Decoding the Enigma. Let Stroessner be your guide on this journey of exploring time.
And remember, the beauty of music is that it exists outside of time. You can listen again and again, and each time you'll discover something new.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep listening, and keep those ears open.
See you guys in the next deep dive.
See you then.
Bye!
Bye!